So I spent this weekend going through a few thousand comments and a lot of questions that I received on my social media platforms. And what stood out wasn't the questions people were asking that they wanted answers to, it was how they were asking the wrong questions. So I pulled a few that I thought were really strong. So number one, Mark T on Facebook asked, why do some people always get better deals even when they shouldn't? Mark, first question is, what do you mean they shouldn't? I think that would actually be the premise of the question. What makes one person allowed or worthy of getting a good deal when someone else isn't? The simple answer to this is preparation and knowing your own goals. And you'll find this is a reoccurring theme. When we are approaching a negotiation for anything, whether it's with your spouse about what movie you're going to see or what restaurant you're going to eat at, or what outfit you want your kid to wear, when we approach a negotiation, we need to have a goal that we're trying to hit in mind. Then we need to do the correct things to align the chances of faith to come down and allow us to achieve that end goal. And sometimes that's where things get misconstrued. So what do you consider a good deal when others don't? Because your friend, obviously I'm in real estate, your friend bought a house in a neighborhood where you're trying to buy a house and they got it less expensive than you? Well, maybe the seller's motivation was different, or maybe somebody hired a stronger agent. Maybe the sellers were desperate. Maybe the listing agent on the other side was terrible and the buyer's agent that represented your friend was great. The idea here is, if you approach these things with the end goal, what do I consider a good deal on what I'm trying to do? And you don't convolute that with 9,000 other things. And you approach the negotiation and the deal of, if I get, let's say it's three things, price, payment, and time. That's usually what this stuff boils down to when we're talking about homes and cars and businesses and that sort of thing. If you can hit those three things, then things like maybe timeline, who it is, what hoops you have to jump through, some repairs, they don't matter as much. And so what one person's good deal is may not be the next person's. All right, question 2 from Instagram, from Elisa R. How can you tell someone is lying without them saying anything obvious? Well, some of that's going to depend on what sort of TV shows and movies, or maybe even, Lord forbid, books you've read on being able to study body language and micro signs, micro stuff. And the problem is, the one thing all of those, including the best TV shows that show this, is they always talk about the way somebody's eyes go. Oh, if they look up and to the right, they're making something up. Or if they look down and they're not making eye contact, that means they're lying. These things aren't true without establishing what we call a baseline. And a baseline is talking to somebody in a relaxed manner long enough to understand how they normally behave. Because every human being basically has two ways they act if we boil it down that simple. We have one when we're relaxed and we feel like we are either not needing to be in charge or that we're in charge, but it doesn't really matter. And then the side where we feel like we're going to have to win and we're playing a game and we act differently. You can't do that just based on body movements and behavior. For one, I have a tendency to sit very close posture. That is my resting way. If I sit with my lady or my kids, when I'm sitting listening to them, I am closed. My arms are crossed. I sit back in my chair. My posture leans forward. My chin comes down and I make eye contact. When I'm asked about my day, my eyes go up and to the right because I'm trying to remember and also not make them long stories. So it's a little bit hard. Here's how I do it. I ask the question of what happened, and then I ask specific questions about the individual things about what's going on. So without taking it to real estate, let's say that it's something as simple as having a conversation with a friend. And Alyssa, let's say you have a friend, Barbara, that was invited over for the family barbecue, said she was going to come, and then called last minute, said she couldn't. She tells you that she's sick with a cold, or her mom has got something going on she needs to help her with. And you really want to find out whether or not she's lying to you about whether or not she couldn't come. The real simple way is later going, Barbara, I'm so sorry you couldn't make it over to the barbecue. So what was going on? And Barbara says, oh, well, my husband had to work and my mom, she had a doctor's appointment, and so I had to take her. So you ask a specific question. Oh my gosh, what was going on with your mom? And listen to what the explanation is. Typically, and by the way, this is not all the time, lies are constructed with way too many facts because people panic and we start throwing out things that try and make it sound believable. Yeah, no, Mark, my husband, he got called into work last minute because now they're buying a new building and he needed to go look at the floor plan. So, he normally doesn't work on Saturdays. And then, Bobby, our son, we had to skip his soccer game because none of us could go because, my mom had this throat problem and nobody's been able to help and she's afraid of driving, but you already know that. So, we drove all the way and it was in traffic and then I was out of gas and we showed up and it was a really long wait. That's typically going to be somewhat of a lie or somebody who speaks in hysterics and storytelling. You have to establish the baseline first to figure out whether or not you can really do it. Second, my real question on that one is, do you always really want to know when someone's lying to you? Yes, you want to know if a spouse or your kid's lying to you, but in negotiations, you should pretty much always accept the fact that people aren't being 100% truthful and forthcoming up front with you. So there is a bit of withholding the full picture. Whether you want to call that lying or not, I don't know. All right, question 3. I like this one. James from Facebook asked, what's something you can say that instantly puts you in control in a negotiation? Really simple. In a negotiation, if you want to be in control, not only do you need to be the calmest person, but you be the first to agree. And I do not mean agreeing to their demands. You agree to make that person right. Because who wants to be wrong in a negotiation? Nobody. So if you're in a negotiation, let's say you're sitting across in a car dealership and you're negotiating the price on this new car and you've got a trade-in. So if you can make the salesperson across from you right, they're going to be more likely to negotiate with you. Well, how do you do it? Let's say you're trading in a Toyota Camry and you're buying a Toyota Tacoma. And no, I'm just thinking of Toyotas on the top of my head for some reason. And he says, great, the Toyota Tacoma that you're trying to purchase new is going to cost this much. And you want to take the upper hand? You go, oh, I agree. I understand. Yeah, that seems to be the going rate. Now you need to take it back to your goals. What is most important to you? Is it getting that new truck at a sticker price, a dollar amount, or is it a monthly payment? Or is it the monthly cash outlay? Because see, if I already put him at ease, the other salesperson, that, hey, no, you're right, I understand where you're coming from. Now I can work all the other sides of this, which is, what am I going to get for my trade-in? What am I going to get for interest rate? What sort of extra special deals am I going to get? It all depends on what I'm going to hit. But the quickest way is to not make an adversary of the person you're negotiating with. You don't want to posture up, you want to posture down. And you want to understand you're doing that and get your ego out of the equation to where you know what your end goal is. Because when the other person is now taken off being guarded and feeling like they need to flex and they can work with you, you have the upper hand of the negotiation all the time. All right, number 4 is from Brianna C. on Instagram. And she asked, what's the fastest way people lose leverage without realizing it? The first is either yourself, or if you're using a representative in a shuttle negotiation like we do in real estate, where you have somebody else negotiate on your behalf, divulging too much information about where you're willing to go and what you're willing to do up front without keeping in mind what your end goal is. If we show all of our cards up front, we have no room to negotiate. The second is negotiating from a position of ego for no reason. One that doesn't necessarily hit our goal, but to have to be right. We lose all power when we have to be right. We have to sometimes make the other person feel or be right in some regards to actually get what we want. All right, number 5 is from Daniel S. on Facebook, and he asked, why do people think they're negotiating when they're actually giving things away? Oh, that is a good question. So there's this idea that negotiation means that I have to give things that I care about to you in order to make the deal, which I consider the biggest F word in negotiation, fair, reality. And that somehow my perception of fair is going to be the other party's perception of fair. And somehow if we're fair, everybody wins. That's not how negotiation works. Negotiation works if we know what our main goals are, and there's another whole list of things we don't care about. They're not as important as these things. We negotiate to get these things, and we give the things we don't care about away. That's not really giving. Sometimes it's more important to the other party to get something that is not one of your goals. And in which case, you're not really giving anything away. You're just going, yeah, I really don't care about that, but you don't want to say that. You go, great, I'll grant you that. And that is negotiation. The problem is when we look at it and we want all the marbles on our side. No, you can't have any. That's not negotiation. That is just arguing. And arguing never gets your deal done. All right, number 6. Kevin M. on YouTube asks, how do you deal with someone who thinks they're smarter than you? Simple. I'm going to assume all of you that I'm talking to are probably smarter than me. And if you prove yourself not to be, that's not my goal. My goal is not to be the smartest person in the room. My goal is to get for my clients or myself, if I'm negotiating for myself personally, what it is my goals are and what it is I need. I don't need to be the smartest person in the room. In fact, I don't like to be in rooms where I think I'm the smartest person in the room. Now look, that floats my ego, sure, but that's not reality. How else are you supposed to learn? So yeah, you negotiate by letting them continue to believe they're the smartest person in the room. And without your ego in place and without you needing to prove that they're wrong or you're smarter, negotiate all the way around them and control the conversation and the negotiation and let them think they won in the end. Should actually do an entire series on it because it's not that hard to do. All right, number 7 from Facebook, Anthony G asked, what's the difference between winning the argument and winning the deal? Okay, so an argument is one thing, a deal's another. So let's put this in some sort of context most people would understand. If you want your significant other to take you to a restaurant to eat, or you want to take her to a restaurant to eat, and then go see a specific movie afterwards on a specific day of the week, let's say a Tuesday. Is that a deal or is that an argument? I say that's a deal because we have multiple steps and things we're trying to achieve. We want to go to dinner at a specific place, and then I want to see a movie. So if I'm going to argue about, to me, that would be what car we're going to take, who's going to drive, or what time we're going to leave, or what day of the week it is. If my goals are this week, I want to go see this new action movie, and before that, I want to go get a steak at my favorite steak place, well, then that's the negotiation part. The argument is what day we do it, what time we do it, who drives, which car we take, what we order at the movie theater, if we're getting popcorn and Sour Patch Kids and we're sharing a soda or not sharing a soda. Arguments are absolutely worthless. Arguments on anything are absolutely worthless because the second you're in an argument, neither you nor the other person are listening to anything. You're not going to change anybody's opinion when you argue. An argument and a negotiation are two different things. An argument is two people butting heads disagreeing where neither one listens to each other and they're both just talking, and the other person's not listening and that person talks and you're not listening. That's an argument. Nothing's ever been solved by that. A negotiation is asking questions and coming to a consensus of what each party wants as a goal. Honey, Tuesday, can you get home from work at 6 o'clock so I can make reservations at this restaurant we like. I want to eat there, and then I want to take you to this movie that I want to see. Will you come with me to go see that? That's the start of a negotiation, because maybe she doesn't want to see the movie. God forbid, maybe she's a vegan and doesn't want to go to the steakhouse. Maybe she can't get off work in time on Tuesday. An argument is, hey, we're going to the movies on Tuesday, 6 o'clock, be here, be in the car, and we're going to go do this, this, and this. No, I can't do that. You know I have this new project at work. I don't eat meat. I hate that restaurant. I don't want to see your shoot 'em up movie. Blah, blah, blah. You never do anything I want. No, you never listen to me. That's an argument. That's not a negotiation. All right, number 8 is from Rachel D. My cousin's name is Rachel. What's the biggest mistake sellers make before they even hit the market? There's 2. Hiring a really crummy real estate agent to represent them. And number 2, marrying the price they want to list their home at as if that's what they're getting right from the get-go and having that reinforced from their crummy real estate agent they hired. That will screw your transaction and your experience in selling your house and getting to the next place that you want to be and your goals every time. All right, number 9. Nicole P on Instagram asks, why did 2 homes in the same neighborhood get completely different results? Good Lord, that's actually complicated. All right, simple answer. Assuming it's like the neighborhood I'm sitting in right now, where both my neighbors' houses are exactly the same as mine, except I've got a pool. So let's account for the pool. Otherwise, they're the same square footage, bedroom, bath count. They're almost painted the same color. They're about the same. All 3 of us put our home on the market. Well, we can get different results based on how we price the home. We can get different results depending on the condition of our home, but let's assume they're all the same. Let's assume we have exactly the same kitchens, exactly the same carpet. They've all been freshly painted. They're decluttered. They look nice. Everything's fine. Which house is easier to show? If they're all the same price, which one is a buyer's agent Can I last minute get a buyer that goes, hey, we just got off work, we want to go see this particular house? Which of those 3 houses can I call on and say, can I get in an hour? Which one says yes? The one that says yes will probably sell first and for a better deal. The next part is, what is the motivation of the seller or the sellers? Are there people willing to accept different terms than the other 2 neighbors? And how competent is the listing agent on each of these 3 properties in order to use strategy, marketing, common sense, God forbid, to be able to facilitate getting one out of those 3 homes sold for what the seller wants in the time frame they want with the least resistance. All right, number 10, Chris V on Facebook asked, what's really happening when a deal falls apart at the last minute? Oh, dear grief. This has been a cancer in the real estate industry across the United States for the last almost 3 years. The amount of transactions that go all the way almost to the end and then fall out of escrow is insane. There's 2 main ones right now. Now, you watch this 6 months from now, it might be something different. Right now, it's sellers absolutely not agreeing to anything in repairs or a credit for repair, and the buyers having other options going, look, we're using all the money we have, and we know these homes have been sitting, and so we're not going to buy your house, and so they back out. The other one is the buyers get into escrow, figure out when they finally get the disclosure from the lender what their payment is with insurance, with taxes, and go, oh, I think we need to wait. This isn't going to work. And then I'd say minor number 3, real estate agents that don't work with their buyers beforehand to prepare them for what buying and homeownership looks like if they haven't done it before. Because most of the ones that fall out are first-time buyers that back out. There are some where they're move-up buyers, but those are the 3 main. That's what happens. All right, number 11. Samantha K on Instagram asked, you seem like you can read people fast. What are you actually looking for? Well, it depends on the situation. In daily life, are you a decent person that I can communicate with and have a conversation with? That's simple. If we're talking about going on listing presentations or accepting clients or working with the other agents across California that need help in the real estate deals, what I'm looking for is where their real pain points are. And it's kind of easy to sit across from somebody. Again, we go back to your significant other, your children, your friends. If you detach yourself a bit from your own wants and needs, and you pay attention to what they're projecting, you can tailor questions to ask in what they're speaking about to get them to talk about exactly what's on their mind and what they need. In which case, that would be considered a read. A read isn't some gypsy with a crystal ball. It's simply going, okay, I understand this guy's ego means he needs to be right, as if that's somehow unique. This woman needs to make sure the decision she's making feels safe. That's not unique. This person wants to feel like they're using logic even though they're working off of emotion. So how do we combine the two? All we need to do is look at the way people communicate, ask them the right questions, they'll tell you. It isn't like those FBI movies or whatnot you're talking about where they sit somebody in the little room with the dim lights and they're handcuffed to the table and they start grilling them and they do good cop, bad cop. And, you're looking at which way their eyes go and if their lip quivers. It's really not that complicated. Most of the time, hopefully you're not dealing in those situations because I'm not. You can just have conversations with people and pick up on that quite easily. You just need to get yourself out of the way. Not, what am I going to say next? What am I trying to get out of this? It's simply, okay, let me understand where you're coming from. Ask the question to reinforce it. Ask another question to have them expand it. Now you know where they're coming from. Now you've read somebody. You look amazing. All right, number 12. And I'm not even sure how to answer this one. Brian H. on YouTube asked, you come off intense. Does that help you or hurt you in negotiations? Man, I don't know the answer to that one. My whole life, I've been told that I'm intense. And sometimes that's good because where the intensity comes from is wanting to get a result. It's been that way since I was a kid. But I will tell you what, I'm not really always that intense. It's just when there's a purpose. I am just as good as anybody else at laying on the couch and binging Netflix with my lady and eating fast food and taking a nap as anybody else is. But if there's a goal, I am action oriented that we go from point A to point B. What are we trying to achieve? I don't like adding time to equations or decisions. Not my own, not somebody else's. It doesn't help things. It's let's figure this out now. For some people, that does come across intense. There is an issue when you're in front of me, and I don't know that you can tell in these videos and my stuff I do. I'm 6'5". I have a loud voice. It's usually deep. But I'm not a huge bulky guy. But I do speak with my hands, and I am very direct. And I'm deliberate, at least when I get it right. I'm very deliberate in what I say. And that might make some people think I'm intense. But I don't know. If you were hiring somebody to work on your behalf, I would think you'd want somebody intensely focused on the task that you needed solved that wouldn't be comfortable going to bed at night until that was handled. So if that makes me intense, then I'm intense. If that makes you uncomfortable, well, I'm sorry. I promise you, I'm actually a really nice guy.